Nebraska Preps Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
You're the big voice guy. It's Nebraska Preps Postgame. That's Jacob Padilla. Some people call him JP. Some people just call him Jacob. Some people call him the biggest Phoenix Suns fan east of the Rockies. We'll just go with Jacob today, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you, Damon?
I'm good. So it seems like we catch up more off the pod than on. We'll try to bring it back to the podcast, man. It was, I don't know how eventful the last week was as a whole, but there were some impressive showings, whether you're talking about Class A or Class B from top to bottom.
Yeah, had some good matchups there. Had a couple of events this weekend. I was over at the Mid-America Center kind of checking out the Nebraska versus Iowa border battle this week. We had Abraham Lincoln over in Council Bluffs take on both of Nebraska's best teams and produce some really good games there. So there's definitely some things to talk about this past week. Yeah,
we could stay with that AL theme just for a little bit as we were kind of talking before we got started. Josh Dixon Company. Really, really tough. That's a good AL team. I like the way that they've kind of scheduled this deal. They're kind of ramping up for Iowa State basketball, and they look like more than just the part.
Yeah, and I was there on Friday when they took on Bellevue West. I didn't get to see the game against Millard North. I was trying to watch a little bit on the stream, but I went to a different game that night. So both games, they kind of fell behind and got back into the game, showed some real grit. Jason Isaacson's done a great job with that program over there.
Fantastic hire.
Yeah.
And he has taken on all comers, and that's a confident, well-coached. That's a good bunch.
Yeah, for sure. Got some good athletes there, some good basketball players. Jamison Gruber had a really good game. Obviously, Josh Dix is their best player. He's got a handful of mid-major offers, and he's got some nearby high majors watching him closely as well. It's 6'4", shooting guard. Can handle the ball, makes really good decisions depending on what the defense throws at him, can shoot the ball, can get it through him and finish. He had a nasty dunk in that Bellevue West game.
Yeah, poor Will Kyle, a guy that we were highlighting last week is kind of he's a guy that's flying under the radar a little bit.
He had 3 or 4 blocks in that game, 6'7", athletic, long. Like, he can go up and get it. Josh went at him and just kept going up. When he took off, I was like, okay, what's we going to get here? And then he just kept going up and threw it down.
Yeah, kind of gave it the old on the head deal.
Shout out to Alex Phillips and that officiating crew for kind of letting that go. It didn't cross the line. So.
And it was right next door at the MAC to the Iowa West Fieldhouse. So there were some people that were kind of double dipping as there was a big tournament going on at the Fieldhouse as well. It was that was a really good back-to-back showing. A couple of 2 and 1 possession games and back-to-back nights with Millard North and Bellevue West. And Coach Isaacson really showing that Abraham Lincoln is right there.
Yeah, Dix had 32 against Millard North on Tuesday and then followed up with the 18, 7-7 against Bellevue West. So really showing that he's the real deal. But I think Hunter Salas had 26 on Tuesday. Tyler Sandoval and St. Thomas each had 22. On Friday, it was the Frankie Fiddler show. He had 27 in that game.
Yeah. Frankie Fiddler showed the full repertoire the other night. He can score at all 3 levels. He's putting it on the deck a little bit more. I think folks maybe look at his athleticism and they're thinking just okay.
Yeah.
I think it's better than people think if you watch him enough.
Yeah, and I think he's kind of figuring out how to not settle as much when he does try to put it on the deck, because he's a fan of that kind of fadeaway jump shot, mid-range jump shot, and he did a good job of, like you said, getting the rim. He had him and Greg Brown both back-to-back steals and breakaway dunks. That was a huge stretch in that game, kind of give Bellevue West that momentum, and he just made some big shots all the way throughout.
You mentioned Greg Brown. It's good to see him playing well. He's I won't say bounced around, but I think he's kind of the forgotten man. He was kind of tucked away at Burke, who we'll get to here in a little bit and get your thoughts on that basketball situation and how they're going to try to, bring back a fairly successful program. They are struggling right now, but Brown transfers out of there. Jaron Marshall transfers out. It's a little bit of a rebuilder for Burke, but it's good to see Brown kind of land at it's not easy to fit in when you're playing with a lot of other good players. He's kind of made the transition.
And he's a guy, he's obviously familiar with Chucky and Frankie from playing Team Factory during the summer. So that you kind of already had that chemistry built in a little bit there, and I think that's a huge part of why he made that decision, that he's comfortable playing with those guys. And he's a good passer. and he can catch fire from the perimeter, knock down some threes in bunches. So he's a good kind of fit supporting piece for kind of those two leading the charge. For sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because I felt like he kind of kept them in it a couple weeks ago against Millard North when it wasn't Enselman and Fiddler scoring, right? It was Brown was kind of that next piece while Chucky was still trying to find his game offensively. Dotzler struggling a little bit from the field. Greg Brown made a lot of plays.
Well, and Chucky picked up his fourth foul early on there, and they Brown kind of took over running the show and ran the point for them. Kind of bought them enough time for Chucky to get back in it later on. So, yep, that's again, Bellevue West has shown itself to be right at the top of Nebraska, right there with Millard North.
Yeah, you mentioned you double dipped in terms of getting some games in. You were at BRLD and Elkhorn North. You saw a double dip. You went for the boy-girl doubleheader, right? So you got to see Lucas and Britt on opposite teams. Not the same gender, but a lot of good basketball going on in that one.
Yeah, man. Britt Prince, she's special.
She's fantastic.
7 threes in that, 7 to 9 shooting from 3. Just absolutely went off. She was phenomenal in that game. BRD was throwing zones at her. She was kind of cutting through, finding the spots. Got some transition plays, finished through contact, knocked down a mid-range jumper too. So just kind of showed off the whole package in that game. And so Elkhorn North kind of controlled that game against BRLD, who was 7-2 in C2, but it's tough playing up against what's already one of the best teams in Class B on the girls' side. And Ann Prince has done a great job kind of starting that program from scratch there. Riley Palmer had a really good game as well, good first half, so she's a solid kind of complementary piece there to Prince. So it's a tough team.
It is. One of the advantages to having a daughter that plays high school basketball is you get a chance to see some of these girls young, right? Yep. So in succession, especially through middle school, I got a chance to see McCabe and Prince kind of back-to-back. Anea Jones. You see the whole gamut. And we talked about this a little bit last week towards the end of the pod. Girls basketball is in good hands right now. There's a lot of good young talent in the Metro. We talked about the host of sophomores at Millard South, and we know about Alexis Markowski at Pius. It's just a lot of good quality basketball, and it's not just in Class A.
And you mentioned McCabe, Taylor McCabe. I saw her on Saturday. Career high, 37 points. Obviously, not a school record considering who else went there.
There was this other girl named Jess Shepard that was there playing.
But she was phenomenal. Kind of struggled a little bit in the first half, and then she had scored 17 points and didn't miss a shot in the third quarter against a really good Glenwood team that was shooting the lights out and kind of had the lead for most of that game, and then she just took over and powered Fremont to that win. And then later on that day, her sister, Peyton McCabe, set a school record at Scott, 7-12 from 3. 21 points and a blowout win for Scott. So.
Yeah, I don't feel so bad having kids that go to different schools, right? It's like other people manage it. It's not so bad. I won't be the first or the last, but yeah, plenty of good basketball to be had as we jump back over to A. It's a very interesting week. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'll tell you the most impressive for me, and they're going to get their test tomorrow night versus Bellevue West. What Pius was able to do, the Southwest and Northeast, holding them to both opponents to 36 points while scoring 77 and 67 respectively. It's impressive.
And that comes on the heels of the HAC championship where they dominated Southeast as well.
Yeah, so I was asking you when we were leaving last week, I said, were you surprised at how easily they handled Southeast? I was. I'm not now.
Yeah.
I'm not now.
And like you said, though, coming up here on Tuesday, they go to Bellevue West for a big game. I'm planning on hopefully being there for that one. But I think we've kind of viewed it as, all right, there's this top tier. You got Millard North and Bellevue West. Mm-hmm. And then there's kind of a group of 3, 4, 5 schools right after that. Kind of saw Pius is somewhere in that group, maybe not necessarily that next team. On Tuesday, they'll get a chance to show if they belong right up there with the Prep and the Central.
Yeah, that's where it's at, right? And that's important. See, I think and Elkhorn South football found this out. The 3, 4, 5 and those slots when it comes to district play in the state tournament, that's going to matter, right? But maybe not so much in hoops because once Bellevue West got beat in football, it turned into West Side and then everybody else. With this one, Bell West, Millard North, you're going to get a tough draw no matter which half the ledger you're on if you pencil both those teams in. But that 3, 4, 5, that jostling and shuffling, I think it's going to be important.
Yeah, and so this will be a fun game. Obviously, I think Pius, they haven't had any one player stand out so far. It's been different people each game. A Sam Hassreiter one game, a Sam Hoiberg one, a Charlie Hoiberg one.
Dabercow, I think, is
had a big game against Southeast. So they've got a lot of different guys that can make plays, whereas you've got Bellevue West where it's the Chucky and Frankie show and then some really good pieces around them, but more often than not, one of those two guys is going to lead you in scoring with 20-plus points.
Yeah.
So Pius has kind of done it a little bit different. They've done it with their defense. They've got a lot of length and athleticism on that team. Heck, the Hoiberg twins at 5'9", whatever, can get up and throw it down pretty effortlessly at the point, and then you got guys like Hassreiter and Dabercow and Brady Christensen and guys like that are really long and athletic on the back end.
Just going to say that. We talked to Coach Spitzka last week, and their length, I think, is underappreciated. They can go, at any given time on the court, they can go everybody 6. Well, with the exception of Hoiberg, 6'2" and a half, and then some. They can get long and guard. And the thing that I like maybe the most, they have a lot of guys that can get you. They got more than one way to skin a cat. You just never really know reading that scouting report.
Yep, for sure. So this will be a big test to kind of show, all right, they got off to the late start because of Lincoln. Now they've kind of proven themselves through their first couple weeks of the schedule that they're clearly the best team down in Lincoln. So now you get a chance to come up to the Metro and take on one of the best that we've got up here. So it should be fun.
Let me ask you a quick question about a team that's kind of in the middle of the pack, because we'll get to some of the key games this week, the West Side, the Papillions, the Pius, the Bellevue West. When you're looking at a team like Papillion South, and I believe they're at 3 in a row now in terms of the losing streak, and I know the Benson game was without Coach Heiser. I understand that. For you, when you look at their makeup, you alluded to this a couple of weeks ago. I thought it was pretty spot on. The ability to create off the dribble when guys like Brokail aren't shooting it well, that offense can get bogged down. Is that kind of been their Achilles as you see it, or is this more about the schedule or maybe a little bit of both?
I think it's a little bit of both. That Benson, I didn't see that game, 71-65 loss to Benson. Heck of a win for the Bunnies. But I didn't get to see that one. I didn't see quite what kind of caused them the issues there. But that is, anytime you lose a guy like Jared Matley, who does so much for that team in terms of ball handling and initiating offense, and everything ran through him. Now, even however 7, 8, 9, 10 games we're into the season now, it's still they're still kind of figuring out, all right, who is going to be the guy that can create for us. Tyler Kolb was the backup point guard last year. He's kind of step up now. He's trying to figure some things out. They don't have a ton of depth behind him either. A lot of other options in terms of the point guard spot. So they're still trying to figure some things out. But now you go into this stretch where, that Benson loss hurts because it's in the middle of games against Omaha Central and Bellevue West, and now coming up on Thursday, they get to take on Millard North. Yeah. So it's not getting any easier for them.
You mentioned Matley. The story goes he may be leaving Hastings to come back to Omaha. And I think he just wants to be a student. Maybe is contemplating maybe not playing basketball, which is interesting. Such a good player. After he left Gretna, he transferred to Papillion La Vista South. That would surprise me a little bit, but that just kind of goes to show you, man, with basketball and the level of intensity, it takes a lot to keep that fire burning, and college is tough. I mean, everybody talks about, D1 offers, and the game is tough. There are a lot of good players out there.
I'd say fair share of NAI, D2, every level of basketball. You get a chance to play in college, you've done something. You've really accomplished. It is tough at that level. Some of the guys that play at the NAIA level, they could easily play at other levels as well. So it's just kind of about your situation. So you get an opportunity to play, just consider it strongly, because that's some really good basketball at every level of college right now.
You ask a guy like my man Nate Shimonitz, who was one of my favorites, coming out, and everybody, I'm I wasn't the only one, right? But I'm like, hey, this guy's really, really good.
Yeah.
The consummate gamer. Like, say what you want. Had a fantastic college career, and people are like, wait, what? Who? No, this guy's good. But the game is tough.
Yeah.
A lot of bodies out there.
Now he's coaching over there for Andy King at Elkhorn North.
Yeah, he comes to mind right away. He was such a great college basketball player, and it was just like kind of just flew under the radar.
Well, and it's kind of the same way at prep, and he just makes winning plays. It's not the prettiest.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the best looking jump shot or anything, but he just finds a way to make winning plays at every level, no matter what the competition is. So, heck, I played pickup with him before, and it was kind of the same thing in that game, where he's just not necessarily scoring 30, but just kind of controlling the game, even if he wasn't shooting.
Yeah. One of the other, I think, interesting things, we haven't talked about it much, kind of off to a slow start. Coach Chubbuck's had to play a lot of young guys, right? That you lose a Griggs. That backcourt, it was one of the better tandems to graduate from Omaha South a year ago. Better days ahead for South. If I said, hey, JP, where would you like, if you could, you got a job, you got Omaha Burke, you have Omaha South. Like, which one do you see turning it around quicker in terms of talent?
I definitely say South. And because of the amount of young players, it's them and Gretna, I think, right now that are the two youngest teams in Class A by far. They're both playing more freshmen, sophomores than anybody else, I think.
Although Westside's saying, hold my Gatorade.
they've also got those juniors mixed in there.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
Like Miller North, Westside both have their JV and their varsity benches. They've got plenty of young players too. But in terms of, like, you got Ricky Lofton is leading South in scoring right now as a freshman. You got Isaiah Jackson, Jacob Martin, guys like that are playing big minutes for them as sophomores. I think
Jacob is just a sophomore.
Yeah, both those guys are sophomores. And then Terrion Griggs is kind of starting at the point for them, and he didn't play much last year. He's a junior, but doesn't have a ton of experience. So they've got so many young guys. They don't even have a senior on their roster.
Yeah, and which is interesting too, because I think Westside only has one. North is another one of those teams, and we saw that they put together three wins in a row right now. And I know I think it was Bryan, Norfolk, but then they got Millard West the other night, which was a good win for Coach Lichty and that bunch, and he's starting two sophomores and one freshman with Dale Thomas. It's interesting how the Metro is kind of going through this young influx of talent, yet you still have the Hunter Salases, the Isaac Trouts, the Chucky Hepburns. Like you have an older presence too, but there's a nice little blend where I don't think you'll see a ton of drop-off.
Now, and Mason Strong has kind of been the driving force behind those North wins. He's having a heck of a junior year.
It's a fantastic player. I watched them when they played Westside earlier. Takes good shots. He's confident. He's not afraid of the moment. And, they pulled off the win the other night without Keyshawn Williams, which it's not easy to do. I mean, say what you want about basketball upside. He's a fantastic athlete. He'll guard you. Finding a way to keep those kids playing hard.
Yeah, and Daryl Bennett shot the lights out. Didn't miss 6 of 6 from 3, 23 points in that last game without Keyshawn, I believe. So guys like that stepping up. And so, no matter what the class, like, we've got some good talent in Nebraska. And at all levels, it's continuing to keep getting better and better as we've seen over the last handful of years now.
Yeah, all these junior varsity teams that are just littered with freshman players. It's pretty eye-opening.
Yep.
Let's jump over to a couple other teams we haven't talked about. Central, they're getting ready to hit a little bit of a stretch too. Now they have some quality opponents already under their belt, right? They've played Millard North, they played Bellevue West, they played Papio South. That's a team whose schedule has really primed them for kind of what's coming up here in the next couple of weeks. As I believe you're taking a look at their schedule now.
Yep. So they get another crack at Millard North on Friday.
Yeah.
That'll be a big one.
Probably the game.
And
that girls' game will
Central.
be interesting too. So that's going to be a good environment.
Hope Maya's doing all right.
I do. She's got to probably sit out one more week. with the concussion. She's had 2 days with no symptoms, and it's very tough. Once you use the C word, the protocol in order to come back, you're looking at minimum probably 2 weeks. And
as it should be, it's great you got to have the kids' best interests in mind and make sure they're 100% before they get back so they can go all out when they're back on the court.
That girls' game will be interesting too. When you look at that matchup, the first time around, that game was Central had the lead for bits during that game as well. For them, when you look at the Eagles, is it still about the shooting?
In that particular matchup, for sure, I think, because it's going to be tough you're going to have to be able to trade twos for threes with the lack of size. And again, that last matchup, how many shots did they force Hunter Salas and St. Thomas into with their perimeter defense and making them take some tough shots? They had more shots than points. The problem was you had Jason Green and Tyler Sandoval cleaning up everything around the basket and taking advantage of that size mismatch. So you've got to be able to offset those easy points that Millard North is going to get because of all the attention that Salas and Thomas draw. You're going to have to be able to offset those easy points they're going to get by shooting the ball well. And they've got guys that are capable. Jay Dawson had some really good looks in that game. P.J. Davis had some good looks.
Yeah, he's got to shoot it well for them. He's by far and away their most consistent shooter.
Yeah,
and I think he's really got to be effective from the perimeter because he's kind of the one guy that's not like the others when it comes to consistency. P.J. Davis is showing you flashes. You think offensively, Jaron Marshall is going to get it going. Not that almost 10 a night is anything to sneeze at, but more than capable offensively too. Still figuring out those pieces for the Eagles.
Yeah, so that's going to be the key is they need somebody else to step up. Denham Johnson did about all they could in that game. He tried to keep them in as much as he could. He needs somebody else to shoot well, to play well in that game, to be able to keep up with Millard North. It didn't happen last time, and it was still a competitive game. So if they get another guy to step up there, if Denham has another good game, they've got a chance to take that down in the fourth quarter for sure.
Yeah, the scheduling gods that have not. We've talked about how they didn't do Papio South any favors. Maybe it's a La Vista thing because the Monarchs have had a tough schedule as well. And they've got an interesting one with Westside, Omaha Westside, who is kind of settling into a rotation now. That's a team you'd probably rather play earlier than later. They were sharp against Burke, a little sluggish against Bryan. Kind of how do you see that one shaping up as two teams that are very perimeter-oriented?
Yeah, for sure. That'll be interesting because like you said, Papio doesn't have real strong post presence.
Maybe Luke. Yeah.
Lindenmeyer is a good player, but he's been more of kind of the connector piece, the floor spacer, the ball mover guy this year. Seems like he's around 10 points every single game. Not really more than that too often. 8, 9, 10 boards.
Probably the matchup that Tate Advati will draw.
Yep.
Which kind of fits. Yeah, his temperament. That's a good key little matchup right there.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously the guards. It'll be a big matchup of guards. Kind of both sides can really defend and get downhill and attack the basket on both sides of the court. So that'll be a fun one. I think that is a really interesting matchup just in terms of what both teams are going to do and where their strengths lie. And you mentioned Tate, and he had another really good week last week. 20 and 22 points in 2 games. Had a double-double in one of them. It seems like he's really been coming on strong recently for them.
Yeah, I think the thing is he's learning to feel his way along, navigating his size, right? A lot of explosive leapers. You see some guys that can get up off the floor. I think he's still about 6'2.5". He's a below the rim player, but he's crafty around the basket. He's got good mid range game. His pull up is starting to really look good, right? That kind of tweener where I don't want to get into the teeth. I'm good enough to elevate it at 10, 12 feet, and I know the analytics guys cringe, but his pull-up game has really been sharp the last couple of weeks.
And he's a great example of one of those kids that does grow early, and he was so good in middle school because he was bigger than everybody else and had some skill. As he's continued to get into high school and continued his skill set has started to grow even if he didn't keep growing himself. So he's really done a great job of trying to work on those extra skills to allow him to continue to be successful as he's lost that size advantage.
Yeah, what would you do in this one if you've got to face a guy like Kyle Ingerson who provides length, he's still perimeter oriented. Who do you think draws that matchup on Friday? Is that a Chandler Meeks assignment?
I wonder if you throw Reggie Thomas at him. Obviously, the height differential, but those guys play together all summer long. They practice together a ton. I think Reggie knows the way that Kyle likes to play. That'll be interesting to see kind of how they because obviously he's the top perimeter threat there. You got to stay out on him. They've got a couple other guys there. Obviously, Joey Hylack's going to try to get downhill. You want a big, strong guard on him, maybe. So I think we'll probably see them switch that up a couple different ways. Try to get different looks. Maybe Reggie to kind of get up in him. Second, you put somebody a little taller, a little longer on him at different, because Papio will downsize at times too, and sometimes it could even see maybe you put Kyle at the 5, and then you got a guy like Advadi on him or something. So it'll be interesting to see kind of that chess match between the two teams in terms of the defensive matchups.
Real quick, in our last couple of minutes, we talked about some of the big matchups in A. What interests you in Class B, if anything, that you're kind of chomping at the bit to get a handle of?
Yeah, last week was interesting week in Class B. Obviously, Mount Michael and Elkhorn went head to head, and Mount Michael survived at the buzzer on a tip putback that was just a little bit too late. But that's a strong showing for Elkhorn after kind of having a couple of losses.
A little bounce back.
Yeah.
They're starting to get healthy, getting a full complement of bodies. That's going to matter.
So Mount Michael held on to that game, and then they go down to Missouri and lose a tough one in the fourth quarter. Had a couple of chances in that fourth quarter, some really good looks, and couldn't get them to fall, so they suffered their first loss of the year. Wasn't against the Nebraska team, though, so that's not going to hurt them in the standings.
No.
But then you have Waverly knock off Norris, hand them their first loss in an impressive fashion.
So, anomaly or a way that you think Waverly is capable of playing? Because that's going to be interesting.
I think it's looking more and more like basketball is following the path of football in Class B this year, where there is no dominant team. Again, I think we both feel confident that Mount Michael probably should be the best in terms of top to bottom, the most talent. They've kind of been up and down a little bit this year. I think you still take them with the biggest upside, but everybody's been all these kind of teams in the top. They've all been around each other. They've beat each other. They've played each other a couple different times. So it's been really interesting in Class B. We still got Scott kind of hanging in the background there after that tough start to the year, and you figure they're going to keep getting better.
You saw the tough overtime game from Platteview last week where, boy, they have lost some close ones.
Yeah, they've done really well. They've impressed me. They're better than I thought they were going to be in a lot of it.
And they're a little bit better than just Connor Milliken. That's the easy name to just say, but I think this may be one of Coach Brodsky's better coaching jobs.
Oh, for sure. Opinion. Yeah, because Milliken and then Tyler O'Reilly, those are the two names coming back that you knew. The rest of those guys are doing a great job of filling their roles and allowing guys like Connor to go off and to put up those big numbers by whether it's screens, whether it's spacing the floor, whether it's really digging down on defense. They've allowed Connor to put up some big numbers here and allowed Platteview to get off to a 9-2 start.
Before we let you go real quick, and we'll be back next week with Nebraska Preps postgame. In most people's polls going back to A, this will be Grand Island's first entrance, especially with the toe stub from Millard West. We know about Isaac Trout. When you take a look at Grand Island's upside, what do you think that's capable of? Or what do you think they're capable of as they'll probably enter most top 10 polls this week?
Yeah, so obviously they opened the season against Creighton Prep, kind of got humbled in that one a little bit. But since then, they've gotten off to a heck of a start to the season here. That being said, they've also kind of caught teams at the right time. They haven't played the toughest schedule. A lot of the Lincoln teams, Lincoln Southwest, with the injuries there, with Rylan Smith and Ben Hunziker, two of your three best players being out. So that really that's a big hit for Southwest. So we'll see kind of here as they'll get another crack at Southeast. You got Millard West, could be interesting. You got North Star, Northeast, and kind of coming up in the second half schedule. So it's gonna get a little bit tough for them. I have been impressed with the way that Isaac Trout has played this year for the most part. I kind of wondered how this season would go for him, considering he has an entirely new team around him. Basically, they just elevated their JV team after losing everybody but him from their varsity team. So he's been playing with guys that haven't played really any
meaningful
varsity basketball
minutes.
So you knew he's going to be getting double and triple teams all season long. And he's been able to put up some big numbers and be a little bit more efficient than I thought he might, just based on how I expected teams to kind of throw the kitchen sink at him defensively. So if he can keep that up, and Kyton Fife, I think, had a pretty good start to the season.
Folks recognize that last name too, don't they? Good athlete. Only going to get better too. He's kind of just getting started. So
it'll be interesting to see kind of how their growth follows with the jump in schedule that they're going to take throughout the season here. But props to them for getting off to this start. I certainly didn't have them at 7-2 or whatever they are at this point in the season.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. We'll be back next week. Make sure you're tuning in. That's Jacob Padilla. I'm Damon Benning. This is the Nebraska Preps postgame. Don't miss a download. Stay with us. We'll keep you covered in just 7 short days. That's a week for those of you keeping track at home. Talk to you then.
A Hurrdat Media Production.